Charles, I almost think we should have done like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 watch party for this ridiculous Clinton deposition, because they were just lying so much, but it was so long. I don't know if people could sit through that. How you doing?
I'm great, Jason. Thanks for asking. So I hope you're well. The now deceased and very famous New York Times columnist William Safire got in trouble for calling, I forget if it was Hillary or Bill or both, doing a column where he called, I think it must have been Bill or maybe Hillary or both, a habitual liar or a congenital liar. And that's what these two people are. They do not know how to tell the truth. I mean, I watched some of Bill's and some of Hillary's, but Bill's was astounding. I mean, to be asked, to be pressed under oath, to be asked, have you ever lied under oath? And to say no at least twice when it's a matter of public record.
Right. How can he do that?
I mean, what happened there, just to refresh everybody's recollection, as before Bill pardoned Susan Rosenberg and Pincus Green and Mark Rich and many other awful, despicable criminals, before he did that, several days before, a guy named, I think it was Robert Ray, was put in to succeed Ken Starr as whatever it was then, special counsel, independent. I forget whether it was special or independent, but to clean up that mess. And basically what Ray did is he said, I am going to indict you for perjury, and we'll go through that drama after you leave the White House, or you can sign this agreement now and confess to lying under oath. There is an agreement in which he had to specifically confess to lying under oath. And he also had to agree to pay any fines that might arise out of whatever he was going to have to do next out of his own personal pocket. So with that, he confesses to lying under oath, which is it's a bad thing to do at all. But when the chief legal officer, Attorney General is not the chief legal officer of the United States, the president is. So for the chief legal officer to say, I lied under oath while I was president, then to have to sign this agreement, then to have to subject himself, as was natural, not only to the bar proceedings in Arkansas, where rather than be disbarred formally by Arkansas, he surrendered his law license, which people have actually written lengthy articles about this. But surrendering your law license under threat of sanction is the same as being disbarred, right? It's absolutely the same thing. So he was disbarred in Arkansas, which meant, and this is something that people haven't really focused on, Bill apparently may have gotten a license to practice before the New York bar. So he also, I'm told, and I haven't checked this, but I'm told he also either surrendered or agreed to withdraw in New York, but he certainly surrendered his law license to practice before the Supreme Court rather than contest. He had an option to contest each of these in Arkansas and before the Supreme Court, and he did neither. So to get up there and say, and I think he was asked a question more than once, to lie repeatedly about that. Have you ever lied on it? Nope. And then to nitpick the questioners, to act as if he's the ultimate arbiter and she's the ultimate arbiter, and his lawyers, David Kendall and Cheryl Mills, that those people are actually on equal footing with the Oversight Committee. I mean, you have got to be kidding me. The attitude these people took was shameless and only underscores my belief that there has been a long-standing criminal conspiracy to allow the Clinton family to enrich themselves, to gorge on government grants, to account for all those government grants falsely and fraudulently, and to use the Clinton Foundation and other charities as money to fund lifestyles, but more importantly, Democrat political campaigns, is something that I think began on October 23rd, 1997, when this bitch, I don't mean Hillary, but the Clinton Foundation, when it was incorporated on October 23rd, 1997. You go back into that date and that timeline, that's when absolute mayhem was going on with rumors, Linda Tripp secretly recording conversations with Monica Lewinsky, other interns wondering whether they would ultimately be identified. I nearly used a word that began with F, and it's not a choice word, but I used a different word. Through all this, you have the Clinton Foundation incorporated that date, an announcement in early November made by Skip Rutherford, the then president, in theory, of this entity, that the Clintons had selected a location, that Hillary and Bill, not being officers or trustees of this entity, they selected the location. Well, query, how do you do that? This is supposed to be managed by Rutherford and Jordan and Senator Pryor, David Pryor. Those were the named trustees and officers. How did Bill and Hillary have the ability to select the location? They had no legal standing inside it. So you had all that mayhem going on. These people have been lying about not minor issues, fundamental issues. They've been lying. Bill has lied ever since he learned he was a Rhodes Scholar. He has been lying about what really happened in Oxford. And it is a reasonable thing to ask, why did you leave during the war, Vietnam War, when you were of draft age? Why did you abandon your post-Georgetown adventures at Oxford 2 months before you would have graduated? Why did you drop out? That's a fair question. And you don't get to sit there and shake your head at me and try to come up with some convoluted explanation. Tell me the whole fucking truth, something you've never been able to do your entire life. So what we witnessed, in sort of a headline term, was a desiccated, shaky, old man who is just fundamentally not prepared to tell the truth. And with, I suppose, good reason, because if he told the truth, he'd be in prison for charity fraud, solicitation fraud, and many other things.
Is a good explanation, description.
Right. And,
he's a dry.
I'll take the risk now of drinking a sip of coffee, just steadily.
It is a diuretic, but that's all right.
But I mean, he was. His hand was like this.
Oh, well, right. People have noticed that. I mean, that was, as you pointed out, more than a tremor. I mean, that almost seems like, does he have Parkinson's or something that we haven't heard about? He really was shaking.
Yeah, and, I had the pleasure of spending a lot of time with my father, who objectively was a very smart individual with an unbelievable memory until the very end. And they say about Bill, certainly until this recent testimony, that he has an amazing memory. He can meet somebody once, and years later, when he was functioning normally, he could remember the date, the subject of the discussion, what the person was wearing, this and that, and the other thing. That is not the person we saw there. This is a shadow of his former self, and he's been dealt a hand. He dealt himself a hand where he could not win. Because we'll go over more of this in the paid session, but the comments that he made, the specific comments that he made under oath in hours of testimony, every single one of them about, quote, his foundation and the Clinton Global Initiative, every single one of them is a lie, a bold-faced lie. During the time when, from January 20th, 2001, when Bill arrived in Chappaqua, to every instant thereafter, he had no legal connection to an actual organization, a charity that had articles of incorporation and bylaws and minutes and audits. He had no connection to anything like that. He invented this office of William J. Clinton. He moved to Harlem in August of 2001. Prior to that, his aides were issuing press releases about all his good works, starting early or late in January with the American India Foundation, which he agreed to be, I think, chairman or honorary chairman, having just surrendered his law or been told he's got to surrender his law license. You can't function as a trustee without disclosing, a fiduciary, that you lied under oath. So trust all these financial statements that I'm going to oversee. Trust all these filings around the world and in India. You could trust me with relief money. You can't serve as chairman of that. And in different jurisdictions, obviously not including the United States, although the rules in the United States, I believe, are very strict. There's some where it's a bright line, serious crime to fail to give notice to the donating community of fundamental defects in your character. For a lawyer to lie under oath in a serious proceeding involving reputations and millions of dollars in the end, and to delay the reckoning in the courts is outrageous. I wouldn't put somebody who had that record anywhere near the business of raising money for a charity, particularly one that's named after himself. I mean, the whole idea, the reason you have a public charity is you want the board to be independent of the founder, not enthralled to the founder. The board is supposed to be able to stand up to Bill Clinton and say, no, you can't open an office in New York and bill us for it. We're in Little Rock. We don't need an office in New York. It's cheaper in Little Rock than New York. And we said to the IRS in the application on Form 1023 that 100% of our operations would be not only in Arkansas and not only in Little Rock, but in a specific park in Little Rock. So right away, he's opening offices, getting on friends' junket planes, going around the world, saying that instead of focusing on the library, he's going to go, fight AIDS and climate change and all the other bullshit operations that he came up with. None of that was lawful. And in this testimony, I'm going to wait to see an actual transcript. I want to pour over it. I want to count the number of lies this man made under oath. And they're not, it's going to be in probably, certainly in the tens, might be in the hundreds.
He was bold, Charles. I mean, like I said, as I was watching it, I was thinking about what would Charles say about all of this. He talks about, how many times he's flying on people's planes, like that's no problem. And people have mostly pointed out how he was so delighted he was like looking at the days gone by of him on the jet and in a hot tub with, sexy young girls, and he was like smiling about it. But I haven't heard anybody say anything about, he committed perjury. Like, why didn't James Comer or Anna Paulina Luna or Boebert or any of them? The disappointing thing is our comments are reflecting this. DW 1898 says it's all political theater, Rand Paul. And I think that's true. They want to take pictures, and Boebert is posting it on social media. They should have been, Bill Clinton now has committed perjury. They should be prosecuting him for that.
Again, to do this correctly, you need to have it in black. You need to have the transcript agreed, which maybe the transcript is not yet agreed. And once it's agreed, then you go and you're calling out the former president of the United States, who does have legions of supporters still, and SWAT in the media, and other ways to get back at these congressmen and their staffs. And for example, take the subject of that guy, Mark Middleton, who was, when he was in the Clinton White House, he was in charge, among other things, of deciding who got to see the president, who got in to see the president. If Epstein was one of those people, the White House logs suggest he was, apparently, then there is an Epstein connection to Middleton. And Middleton was figured out a way to shoot himself and hang himself to death, which I think is probably deserves a patent.
Bill said nothing about that. He was like, yeah, that's right. He was hung. What about it?
Well, he was shot as well.
I know, but he didn't say anything about it.
Right. And so, these people are clearly, when you're dealing with anybody who has a connection to Arkansas, folks are really nervous about taking on the Clintons if they have to live or have relatives who live in Arkansas, because a lot of people who cross the Clintons are dead, some in gruesome ways. It's not no good way to be killed, but some in, John Glasgow, for example, the CFO of the main contractor that built the Clinton Foundation, I believe, had serious questions about the initial audit dated June 9th, 2006, and the subsequent one dated January 9th, 2008, that should have been done by November 15th, 2007. So, if you're going to take these people on, you have to have overwhelming evidence, and that is coming. That is coming. And also, as Kamala Harris likes to talk about, the passage of time. The passage of time has not been kind to the Clintons, right? But when Bill was young, the youngest governor in the country at the time, I think, and Hillary was this person who delivered the valedictory remarks at Wellesley and then went on to Yale Law School. It was easy back then to pitch this husband and wife team as superstars and the beginning of a new dynasty and imagine what two can do for the price of one, all that bullshit. In 2026, however, Bill will be, I believe, 80 in August, and I think Hillary will turn 79. I may have that right somewhat off. And the gerontology that is the Democratic Party, it should be checking out retirement homes and not spending time pretending that you can keep up with the rising generation, because you can't. And turning to Hillary for a second, thank God the efforts of Trump and others like Peter Schweitzer and Dan Halper and me, who hammered the Clintons over their bogus foundation. Thank God this woman never became president in 2008 or 16, and she certainly will not be president in 2028. She'll be lucky to be alive and out of jail in 2028. I mean, her responses, what they love to do is they always picture themselves as victims. And indeed, I've gone back and read a lot of things written by the Clintons and Clinton insiders. They always justify their actions as if they're noble in their fight against evil right-wingers. That's the predicate of all their actions. Well, we had to do this. We were taking on the evil right wing. Right-wing people don't go around and say, we had to do this. We're taking on the evil left wing. We've looked at facts. We make our own predictions. And people in the center and in the right understand that the largest single expenditure any American makes is on government. A government that cannot balance its books, that has a debt that is out of control. We get it. The people on the left do not. Their solution, Bernie Sanders thinks now that there should be a special wealth tax on billionaires. The billionaires should have to give 5% of their wealth away per year. Fuck you, Bernie Sanders, and your three mansions. Fuck you. What are you talking about? I mean, the first thing we should be at, there isn't a country on earth that legitimately has GDP, gross output, economic output, of 10 trillion or more per year. Yet that's the amount our governments spend inside the United States, 10 trillion per year. Surely we could get the same job done with 5 trillion. That's a lot of money. When you think about how big is Japan's GDP? Forget China's, it's all fake. But how big is Germany's? None of these countries have GDPs approaching 10 trillion. And then you have this moccasin-wearing fake Indian, Elizabeth Warren, bleating about how the rich aren't paying their fair share. The AOC, who should go back and get a legitimate degree before she thinks about opening her mouth again. Lambasting the rich. And, with that dress that she didn't fairly declare the value of at the Met Gala, tax the rich or soak the rich or whatever the dress said. That policy has not worked ever anywhere on earth. The rich are mobile. Unless you want to start jailing the rich and say, you can't leave New York. You can't exercise your free will and leave New York. Rich people have seen the future, the president, Kathy Hochul, and now this moron Mamdummy in New York, Gavin Newsom in California, the various mayors across that state, once great state, they've seen the present and the future, and they're voting with their feet. Some, like me, have decided to leave the country entirely. This is because I don't believe in my lifetime it's going to be fixed. Why would I want to strap on a bulletproof vest and walk out in one of the nicest parts of New York that are left,
it's
worry
illegal.
that I'm...
You're no longer allowed to own body armor. I had to get rid of mine.
Okay, well, whatever protection I can muster to go up against the madmen and women who swarm around Washington Square Park, which is near where I used to live. So, but Hillary, she showed her true colors in that deposition. I mean, she was asked questions, and she was always, her attitudes, well, these questions are stupid. Guess what? You're not in charge of the world. You're like any other human being. You're supposed to answer. You put up your right hoof, and you swore on, whatever the Satanists use, probably not a Bible, to tell the whole truth, knowing that you could lie your ass off. And you don't get to dictate what questions you're asked. You don't get to dictate anything. You come into Congress and you answer the questions under oath, truthfully. You don't get to throw shade at these questions. Oh, you're a QAnon, you're a conspiracy. No, I asked you a simple question and you didn't answer. And actually, there were several times that not only where Bill lied, but where he answered the question disingenuously. He was asked, did you ever have conversations, I think, with about something with somebody? And he said, I never told anybody to do X, Y, and Z. That's not the answer. That's not an answer.
Yeah, he Perry Masoned himself. They were like, Jeffrey Epstein says you like him young. He's like, I didn't rape any underage girls. And you're like, well,
right.
Who asked you about that?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So whatever will happen ultimately here, whether they actually go to jail or not, and I'm sure they've got many ways they think they can get out of this, including departing the planet by dying. The bill dies suddenly, let's say, and then Hillary will say, I'm a grieving widow. It's unfair to go after me now. You could see something like that happening, or vice versa. But the fact is, there is a long record here. The fact is that Bill and Hillary were put on the world stage to be examples of the virtues of a globalist governance network. That was, I think, why so much time and energy was invested in this Clinton Global Initiative and the Clinton Foundation things. The people who have been all pro-globalists, many of them have now one just tried to kill himself in Norway, the former prime minister. One just stepped down, another Norwegian, as head of the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab is out. And globalism is being dismantled as we speak. And that was the Clinton brand. Hillary and Bill and Chelsea were giving awards at this Clinton Global, it should be called Globalist Initiative, of Clinton, what were they called? Clinton Global Citizen, the Clinton Global Citizen Award. I mean, that's like getting the Al Capone or the Bernie Madoff Award in financial reporting. I mean, it's like, you gotta be kidding me.
Well, Charles, we only have about another minute before we make our way over to the First Amendment Forum. People are going to be able to stay with us and hear more about all of this on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. A couple of people have emailed me. They're having difficulty logging into Subscribestar. I did speak with their technical support this morning. There was some sort of problem that they were working on resolving. So I apologize for the inconvenience to anybody. And I do thank everyone for sponsoring the show. People can also follow me on X at JG_CSTT and subscribe there to get the sponsor exclusive content. We got to continue talking about this, Charles, and also updates about Iran and everything. But
Sure.
Just one more word on the Clinton deposition. It was pretty funny how Nancy Mace and Anna Paulina Luna were like, how do you like this picture of Monica Lewinsky? And what about Jennifer Flowers? And Hillary Clinton was like, look, whatever. But we'll be right back.